Okay, so we're going to do a sequence now for our tummy, focusing particularly on the tummy, and with that we really have to be aware of what our breathing is doing. Okay, so I want to walk through a little bit of the breathing stuff first of all. So you want to start with some lateral breathing. So when you breathe in, really trying to bring it wide into the rib cage. And the breath out is very important. So if you don't breathe all the way out, you can't breathe all the way in. So really feel the ribs dropping back down again. And what can help is if you give a bit of resistance. So squeeze on those low ribs, push your hands out. And on the next out breath, think down with the ribs. So they start to connect into these muscles low down here underneath the rib cage. Okay, and we're going to go into some cat breathing. So letting these ribs drop down, squeezing back, letting the pelvis tuck up, rounding the shoulders, come back through just to neutral. Wide and out. So as you're coming up, you're feeling the ribs flare to the sides and breathing out. Really using your pelvis. Great, and last one. Feel it into the back. Using this muscle here, tucking down with these ribs. Okay, great. So we started to waken that up a little bit more. I'm going to come onto your back. Okay, so in this position you still want to have your pelvic neutral. Okay, that's with you flat triangle at your pelvis. You want to let your ribs just dropping heavy into the mat. So you should still have a little bit of an arch in the low back. Find that bracing tension here on your tummy. Find your pelvic floor between your pubic bone and your tailbone. Let a little bit of tension coming up towards the coughing muscles here. Okay, and we're going to do what I call Pri breathing, and I'll explain that in a minute. I'll explain the name to you in a minute. But if you start off putting your left hand on your left lower ribs, reaching your right hand up, I want you to get a little bit of tension of your heels towards your bum. So you're not moving your feet, you're just kind of pulling your heels on the mat, okay? And let your head tip back ever so slightly, really pressing the low ribs here into the mat, keeping the tension on the hamstrings. You're going to do your lateral breathing in wide and breathe out. Follow it through with your left hand onto your left ribs, reaching up. Breathing in. Push it to the right. Breathe out. Really get those left ribs down. Reach up, extend your head if you need to. Try and keep on with the hamstrings. One more breath. So really crunching down through here. What we can then do is let our tummy lift to reach forward a bit more. So we've now got both coming through here. And one more time. And hold it for 2. And 1. And slowly down with control, not letting this fly away, controlling the movement here. Great. and all the way down. Okay, so we've particularly woken up this band of muscle across the low ribs. We're very much aware of this bit working through here. So just trying to get a visualization in your head of this being very integrated from the top of your pelvis at the front to your lower ribs, like a wall of muscle. Okay. And I want you to get that tension onto your hamstrings again. So there's a little bit of tightness in the back of your legs. And as you do that, just feel the back of your pelvis here pressing into the mat and the back of your ribs here. So you've still got this bit of a gap underneath your lumbar spine. And you're nice and strong through your tummy, and just float your leg up to 90 degrees. Okay, we're just going to do one leg at a time here. So lengthening away. Soften it back in. Lengthen away. So we're going to do 5. And you can see that I'm not really pulling with my thighs. I'm not anchoring through here. As the leg comes in, it's very light. Keeping really well connected across here. This is the focus. My leg is just completely doing its own thing. Great. Let that leg down, a little bit of tension on the hamstring, coming up. So you're nice and light into the hip. So essentially the hip drops into the socket, just letting it drop into the socket. Lengthening away. Really keeping this connection through here. Ribs integrating to the opposite pelvis. Soft leg to draw in. One more. And again, a little bit of tension on my hamstring. Bring it up. So I'm going to stay in this, what we call the tabletop position. I'm going to really use my lower ribs here. Trying to get them into the floor, keeping my neutral, not letting my hip knees come forward. So my knees stay above my hips as I try and get this connection here. And just finding the breath with that position, finding the control. So in wide and out and down. 2 more. And taking one foot down and then the other. So there's no tension through the low back and the hips. So again, just find yourself there. Check that you've still got your neutral pelvis, that you haven't really tucked your hip up and flattened your back. Okay? Regain that neutral pelvis, regain the contact with your ribs. Finding the connection at the front. Again, slightly on with the hamstrings to bring your knees up. Okay, so we're heavy, we've dropped into the hip socket. We're using this wall at the front. We're going to do what's called dead bugs. Okay? It's quite appropriate. Right. Shoulder blades stay back into the floor, so don't reach away. Shoulder blades stay back, keeping this tension through here. Opposite arm and leg. So it's like our Supermans, but on our back. So being aware, the strength here, very light in the hip. Don't lose your ribs. Anytime you feel like you're starting to pull in your back, just reconnect. Just stop yourself for a minute. Go, okay, what's working too hard? What have I lost? Do I need to drop my ribs? Do I need to relax through the hips? Reset. Go again. Great. And to finish, just come into a knee hug and let it drop each way. So you can have a really small movement or you can make it really big. Let it come all the way over. Extend the opposite arm, turning the head away. Great, come back up. Use your obliques to bring your legs up. Drop the opposite way. And just in case you've gotten really tight through the front, just coming up into a bridge. And this is a really nice position to again find your breathing. So it just stops us kind of hanging into our hip flexors. If we had to work really hard, it can be automatic to start doing that until you're used to finding this wall of muscle through the middle here. Okay, so just letting the front of the hip relax. Really tucking your bottom right under. Okay, and then see what your breathing's doing. So your ribs shouldn't be up here. Let your ribs drop back. See what you've got at the back and the breathing. So if when you breathe, it's all coming up and you're arching your back, just try and take it down and wide. Coming into my hand. It's dropping low. Think of your knees tractioning out of your hips. One more breath. Slowly down. And we're done.